All right, so we're not wasting any time here. This is a no BS, straight to the point tutorial on how to make the best looking GoPro footage on the internet. All right, so there's a few main factors at play here, but this is the first step to the actual process. All right, so the foundational part of your videos is obviously going to be the GoPro camera. Now I use the GoPro Hero 9, 10, and 11 in all of my videos, but you can realistically use any GoPro from a Hero 4 up. But there's one thing you need to know or be aware of when you're choosing this stuff, so we'll get to that in just a minute. Also, you don't even need to use a GoPro. This will actually apply to any action camera that you might have. So the GoPro 4, 5, and 6 have no in-body image stabilization, so the stock footage looks so much more shaky and less smooth. So if you're in the market, make sure you get a used 7 to 12 or maybe even a 9 to 12 brand new. All right, so check this out. This is the first part of the equation. These are called ND filters or neutral density filters. Think of these like sunglasses for your camera. Oh, don't worry if you don't have these. I'm gonna show you how you can get the same type of footage using a different method and still achieve this from pre-existing footage that you might already have using a software. So stick around for that. Now I'm gonna save you all the technical knowledge on why this stuff actually works and what it does, but it allows your shutter speed to be slow without being overexposed due to the non-adjustable aperture on your GoPro in bright conditions. I'm gonna leave a link in the description for the same ones that I use in my videos so that you can get the right ones, but just make sure whichever ones you choose, they come with an ND8, 16, and 32. These are super important, and I'm gonna show you why here in just a minute. All right, so let's get back into this. The next two pieces of this equation go together, so make sure you pay attention to both of these because without one or the other, this stuff isn't gonna work. Next are the settings for the GoPro itself. Now these are probably the most important part of the entire process because these are what actually make the magic happen. That creamy motion blur, it comes straight from this stuff. Okay, so get your GoPro out or whatever action camera you have. I'm gonna put the settings on the screen right now for you so that you can just copy and paste this stuff straight into the camera from this video. Again, if you're using another type of camera, these settings should still apply. Just find the closest settings to your camera that match these. What's gonna matter the most here is the shutter speed. So you have to make sure whatever your frames per second you're shooting at is, that your shutter speed is 2 times that. So 30 frames per second, 1/160. 60 frames per second, 1/120. But I like 30 FPS the best on GoPro. But the biggest thing with all of this now is to make sure that you're using the right ND filter for the right conditions. Remember earlier when I told you that you'd need an ND8, 16, and 32? Well, here's why. By the way, if you guys want me to personally help you produce clips like this or get big sponsorships or brand deals that I've personally done for myself, or even have me help you just build an online presence, click the link in the description below and apply to work with me right now. I mean, honestly, just look at Hayden Deegan. This kid is a pure result of social media influence, and attention's the new currency. It's the world we live in, and it's especially important in this sport for you. Okay, so back to the video. Depending on the time of day, you're gonna wanna use the following ND filters to just make sure that you have the right type of exposure with the settings that I just mentioned above. If it's a bright sunny day with no clouds, you're gonna wanna use an ND32 because that one's the darkest. Otherwise, your image is gonna look too overexposed and it's not gonna work right. If it's a cloudy or a bright overcast day, you're gonna wanna use an ND16. And finally, if it's a dark overcast day or really dim lighting conditions, go ahead and just use an ND8 or maybe just no ND filter at all if it's too dark. My rule of thumb is that you can always make a video brighter, but if it's overexposed, you're gonna lose all that information in post and it's gonna be really hard to recover. All right, guys, we're at the point in the video where we know how to make the footage look good, but there's a few more steps. And one of them is the mounting location. If that isn't right, it's not gonna look good. The best mounting location for the GoPro is hands down the chin mount and the chest mount. Now I've worked with hundreds of athletes and they all agree that the best trade-off between invasiveness and the image quality of what's produced are these two. You can also experiment with other mounts, but these ones are the best, I promise. I use these cheap ones from Amazon. You can actually find the link in the description in this video. I'll put them down there for you guys. So now that we know how to get our footage looking good on the camera, how do we actually get that onto the screen on your computer, your phone, or YouTube to produce that perfect end result? Editing the videos obviously does come into play when you're looking to make this stuff look as good as possible. Now you can use any editing software with basic adjustment tools like exposure, contrast, and color, but I use Adobe Premiere Pro. Typically what I do is adjust the saturation, the exposure, and the sharpness in post until it looks just perfect. And this isn't gonna be the full editing tutorial, obviously, because that literally deserves a video on its own because it's very intricate, but that's the basics of it. All right, guys, it's time for what I was talking about earlier here. And if you don't have ND filters, you'll wanna download Real Steady Motion Blur for a plugin for Premiere Pro. And you can add motion blur to literally any video that you want, even if you don't use ND filters. I'm gonna put the settings on the screen right now that I got from one of the creative directors at GoPro. All right, so by getting the right GoPro, using ND filters, using the right settings, and then obviously the right mounting location and the editing, you're gonna be on your way to making the best videos on the internet so that you can build a writer profile that literally can't be ignored by anybody online, get you millions of views, brand sponsorships, or just get the most out of your GoPro that you might have just bought. So I'm gonna leave links to all the products that I spoke about in this video in the description so that you can make sure that you get to making content as soon as possible and get millions of views. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe, hit that thumbs up, and we'll catch you on the next one.